Partnering with schools is most important. When we can also bring this mindset into our relationship with schools instead of assuming nothing can change, we can start conversations. You might ask your child's teacher how often and for what purpose devices are being used in kindergarten through second grade.
Have you ever faced a moment that changed everything? A loss, a new path, or an awakening that forced you to rewrite your life? Pivot Point is a podcast that explores those stories. I'm Nik Michael. We'll dive into how pain can spark growth and how crisis leads to clarity. Subscribe to Pivot Point today.
Welcome. This is Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nik Michael, and today we're talking about something that touches almost every family I know: screen time and your children. I want to be clear right from the start. Screens themselves aren't the enemy. What gets us in trouble is unregulated, unlimited screen time. As parents, the goal isn't to get rid of devices completely. Let's be honest, that's not realistic. What we're really saying is to do the best we can for our kids and build balance and self-regulation and healthy habits that will follow them into their teenage years and adulthood. So let's talk about why those early years matter so much and what we can reasonably do about it. So why do these early years matter so much? From birth to about second grade, a child's brain is wiring the foundations for attention, language, self-control, and problem solving. This is the window when they most need real-world human interaction, face-to-face conversation, storytelling, unstructured play, and lots of hands-on exploration. The tricky part is that the research is showing that when screen time becomes excessive, especially in those early years, it's associated with weaker attention spans, lower communication and problem-solving skills, and less real-world learning, especially when screens start to replace the interaction and play kids should be getting with parents, caregivers, and teachers. At the same time, many schools are shifting more and more instruction in kindergarten through second onto tablets and Chromebooks, sometimes for large portions of the day. So this isn't just a home problem anymore. Screens are built into the school day right at the age when children are most sensitive to how their attention and learning habits are shaped. We can't control everything that happens at school, and that can be frustrating. But here's the pivot point. We can be intentional about what happens at home. So what does happen at home? Imagine a typical day for a 5, 6, 7, or even 8-year-old. They may spend hours at school on a device and then come home and default to more passive screen time because they're tired and it's the easiest option. When that happens day after day, the balance can tip quickly. High-intensity digital content with constant movement, sounds, and stimulation. It trains the brain to expect nonstop novelty. After a while, books, quiet play, and even regular classroom learning can start to feel boring in comparison. Not because they're not valuable, but because the child's nervous system has gotten used to a different level of stimulation. Studies suggest that higher amounts of screen use in early childhood, especially passive viewing and media multitasking, are associated with weaker executive functioning, less participation in class, and lower academic performance later on. That doesn't mean every app or digital program is harmful. There are interactive, age-appropriate educational tools that can support learning, especially when an adult is involved and helping the child make sense of what they're seeing. The real questions are: how much time are they on screens? What kind of content are they consuming? And how often is that content replacing real human teaching, play, and conversation? Those variables matter more than whether a device is good or bad on its own. As parents, our role is irreplaceable. Even as schools lean more heavily on devices, parents still have enormous influence. Young children learn language, self regulation, and thinking skills best through direct interaction with a caring adult they trust. Reading together, talking, asking questions, doing everyday tasks side by side, cooking, sorting, building, drawing. These are the kinds of experiences that flood the brain with rich, multi-sensory input that a screen just cannot recreate. One thing the research keeps coming back to is how protective, regular, one-on-one reading is most important. Sitting with a child and reading aloud supports vocabulary, attention span, listening skills, and the emotional bond between parent and child. When screen time starts to crowd out reading, you see fewer back and forth conversations and less deep language practice, and that's where trouble begins. You're listening to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. If today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It truly helps others find the show and supports the work we're doing here. When you choose to read with your child, or you take the time to teach a basic skill yourself instead of handing it over to an app, you're not competing with technology so much as buffering your child from some of its risks. You're giving them what devices can't give: your presence, your voice, your patience, your real-time feedback. That's powerful. It means you have more leverage than you might think, even if you feel like the rest of the world is pushing it in the opposite direction. So how do we create balance without rigid rules? Let's talk about some ways to create that balance without turning this into a rigid rule book. For preschool and early elementary ages, it helps to think in terms of low intentional use instead of all or nothing. For many families, that might look like keeping screen time around an hour of high-quality content on a typical school day, maybe less if you know they're already on devices a lot in school, and maybe a bit more flexible on the weekends. The point isn't perfection, it's keeping the scales tilted towards real life rather than digital life. When screens are being used, it makes a real difference if we can join our kids when possible, sitting next to them, talking about what they're watching or playing, asking questions, helping them connect it to their own experiences. That kind of co-use turns screen time into a shared learning experience instead of pure passive consumption. And then there are the spaces in the day that are worth fiercely protecting: meal times, the hour before bed, and family reading time. Keeping those zones tech-free helps kids settle, process their day, and feel our full attention. Even turning off background TV or constant video that no one is really watching can make a difference, because that noise actually interferes with play and language development more than we realize. Consider anchoring the day with books. One of the most powerful anchors you can build into your home is a daily reading habit. Picture books when they're little, early readers, and chapter books once they hit kindergarten through second grade. Ask them to tell you what happened in the story, what they think might come next, or whether any part of it reminds them of something in their own life. Those simple conversations build comprehension and critical thinking in ways that an app, even a good one, just can't match. Teach basic skills yourself. There's also a huge value in teaching basic skills yourself. Things like letter recognition, phonics, and sounding out simple words, counting, simple addition and subtraction with real objects, blocks, toys, whatever you have lying around. Add in fine motor work like drawing, writing, cutting with scissors, building with Legos, or other construction toys. That kind of one-on-one, real-world practice is often more effective than what early digital programs can offer. And your child will remember learning those skills with you, not with a set of headphones on. Model the behavior you want to see. Of course, all of this is happening while your child is watching you. They're watching how you use your own phone or tablet. If they see us constantly checking a device, the message that sinks in is that screens come first. But when they see us put the phone down to listen, to play, or to read with them, they get a very different picture of what normal looks like. They learn that technology has a place, but it doesn't have to dominate every quiet moment. That modeling is sometimes harder than setting limits for the kids, but it may be more powerful piece of. You're listening to Pivot Point Strategy for Change. I'm Nik Michael. If today's conversation resonated with you, please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. It truly helps others find the show and supports the work we're doing here. Partnering with schools is most important. When we can also bring this mindset into our relationship with schools, instead of assuming nothing can change, we can start conversations. You might ask your child's teacher how often and for what purpose devices are being used in kindergarten through second grade. Is the tablet there to supplement instruction or to replace it? Is there still time for hands-on activities, paper and pencil work, and group learning? Framing it as our family is trying to keep a healthy balance with screens at home. How can we support what you're doing in the classroom? This can open a collaborative door instead of a confrontational one. Schools are almost certainly going to continue using tablets and Chromebooks. That's the reality. But we can advocate for screens to support developmentally appropriate teaching, not stand in for it. Finding the pivot point in the end. The goal here isn't to create fear around technology or pretend we can go back to a completely device-free world. Screens are part of modern life. They're part of school, and our kids do need to know how to use them. The real risk comes when we let screens quietly push aside the slow, relational, language-rich experiences that early brains absolutely depend on. That's where this becomes a true pivot point in education and in our homes. By limiting unregulated, unlimited screen time and intentionally investing in reading, talking, and one-on-one teaching, we give our children the best of both worlds. They become comfortable enough with technology to function in today's classroom, and at the same time, they get the deep human connection and real-world practice that builds strong minds and strong hearts. That's the balance we're aiming for. That's the pivot. As parents, we're all figuring this out in real time. There's no perfect formula, no family that does it right every day, but there are small intentional choices we can make tonight, this week, this month, that protect what our kids need most during these critical early years. That awareness, that willingness to notice this pivot point and respond to it is where real change starts. Thanks for spending this time. If any part of this resonated with you or gave you an idea you want to try at home, share it, talk about it with other parents, or even with your child's teacher. We're not doing this alone. We're navigating it together, one pivot at a time.